But
I think that like the sort of the documentary style of this and like the grainy cuts to video at a certain point, I think it's really interesting in terms of when this movie begins to introduce elements of like magical realism.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it really like fucks with your perception of like, because like, you know, when Arita's ghost shows up for the first time, it really fucks with your perception of like, what am I seeing here?
Yep.
Because there's nothing to announce that like, oh, that this is like a different reality or this is a dream or anything like that.
He doesn't do that, which is great, and it's part of what makes Kurosawa's movies interesting and creepy. Is that it's like with the violence, it's matter of fact. He's just in the room now. You know he's dead, but I'm not announcing that. I'm not going into ghost vision or having some kind of transition.
But then the ghost also affects physical reality as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like he fucks up their brine shrimp operation.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, one thing that stuck out to me now, long before Parasite, this is a movie about being so fed up with your boss that you just
kill his family.
Kill his whole family. Not his whole family.
Yeah.
I think he lets the daughter live. Because you have to maybe preserve some sympathy for Arita. But there's another great movie called Pickpockets, which is similar as well. I'm not saying that no one had ever broached this before Parasite. But the boss, as you pointed out, I don't know if we were on mic or off. He's not like a super rich guy like in Parasite. But it's almost worse. He's kind of like that small business tyrant.
He's the worst kind of small business tyrant. Like the plot really begins when like their boss is like trying to like hang out with them.
The worst thing, the most nightmarish thing
that is
ever.
The worst kind of small business tyrant is the guy who thinks he's cool and like your friend.
He says, "Give me some CDs. Let's hang out. And you can give me some CDs for young people."
Yeah, he brings Nomura and Arita over to his house to move furniture.
Great.
Yeah.
For free.
He's like, I threw my back out, so you guys can come over and just do this for free for me, right?
Yeah, and they move furniture around his house. And then like his wife gives him lunch or whatever, and they ask like, what did you study in school? And Nomura says music appreciation, and she goes, what kind of music? And he's like, just music.
Yeah.
And then the boss is just like, please give me a CD. I'd love to listen to your cool hip sounds.
And when he at one point he sees Nomura on the job, and he's like, so do you have any CDs? He's like, what, on me? And he's like, yeah. And I guess somehow he does. And then the boss grabs it. He's fiending for it.
The scene where the boss comes to hang out at their house is so funny.
Oh my God. He turns on the TV.
Yeah.
It's like one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen.
But also the way that Arita is looking at him is pretty scary.
Yeah. It's like you get
He's
the feeling
prefiguring the murder.
Because when they first go over to the boss's house, when they're leaving together, Arita looks back at his house and sees them through the window of this like nice family scene of them having dinner together as a family, as normal people who fit into society,
bourgeois and middle class family.
Their roles are defined, their place in the social hierarchy is set. They're doing what you should do in society. Like he's become a man, he has a family, and he looks back at the house in this sort of placid domestic scene, and he contests to Nomura. He says, I think a storm is coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then walks away. And then like very soon after that, their boss shows up at Arita's apartment.
Yep.
And just like unannounced to just like hang out with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then so the scene where he like just turns on their TV to watch televised ping pong.
Yeah.
And like for hours.
He's clapping.
And he's like clapping. He's like, go Japan.
Howling, and he's like, come cheer with me.
He's like, come cheer with me. He's like, you can really get into it.
Yeah.
Come cheer
And
with
they're
me.
both just sitting there silently looking at him, and they hate him so much.
Yeah.
They hate him.
The
'cause, like,
hate in their eyes is unreal.
But
And
particularly Arita, when he's just staring, because I think doesn't the boss pass out or he falls asleep or something while watching the TV, or he's like sipping beer.
He just
the whole
ignores
time.
them.
Yeah,
Like,
ignores them. But when he's looking at him, you can see written on his face like, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker.
Yeah.
real soon.
And he gives him this whole spiel about like, hey, like I'm 55. How old are you guys? And he goes, wow, like you're 25. I wish you could have met me at 25. I was really something back then in the early 70s. Yeah. I had guts back then. We all had guts. Everyone had clear goals back in the 70s. Talking to these two shitheads who like have no goals, no life, and they're at 25. They're not really something, or like they're not enjoying life. They're not living it to the fullest. They're just too totally depressed,
floating through
floating.
Yeah.
The first indication that there's some level of the theme of generations, not having anything to do with each other in Japan at this point, or at least in the context of the film.
I think in Cure there is this unbridgeable gap between men and women, and I think in this movie there is an unbridgeable gap between perhaps not so unbridgeable as the movie goes on.
Yes,
between
hopefully.
the two different generations.
And I think part of the social taboo that gets violated in this, in the same way that in Cure, it's kind of, everyone's so bottled up and polite. It's like there's nothing they can do because he's their boss and he's like an older guy than them. Yep. They have to treat him with some degree of respect, and he's kind of abusing that to try and be encroach on the only time they have where they don't have to deal with him.
Yeah.
And it's kind of so he kind of has violated this social faux pas, but the reaction they have is they just like in Cure.
They can't be equally and oppositely, just fuck off, because he holds the power over their lives. They're part-time. But even when he says, I think I want to hire you guys on full time, they're like, no fucking way. No, come on, no. And you think, normally in a plot point that might be nice that they get a full-time job, but definitely not a good thing. But he also, he does a lot of, he's always motioning, beckoning them. I was about to say The Sopranos. There's that scene. Who is it? Is it Adriana who sees her?
It's Artie Bucco's wife.
It's Artie Bucco's wife, because Carmela sees her not just as a friend, but kind of as a servant.
Yeah.
And this guy, he's always motioning them for to come over. There's that one scene where Nomura is at the assembly line or whatever, and the boss is just doing this for a full minute. He's just like, just Dan, Dan. But and then he says, "Do you have the CD?" And he takes the CD out of his pocket and he grabs it immediately. He's so handsy, and it's just obviously it's an exaggerated way of being this guy owns them. He acts like he owns them. He shows up to their fucking house whenever he wants.
And this is what I mean about Kurosawa's sort of very subtle but unbelievably powerful hypnotic effect in his movies. Is that the first time I saw Bright Future, I was this boss is not the stereotypical evil boss, but has, like you said, he is annoying as fuck. Yes. And I had no idea what the plot of this movie is or where it was going whatsoever. And I swear to God, as they are starting to think it, I in my own head am thinking, I would like to kill this guy. I would like to kill this guy and his wife.
I mean...
And here's the disturbing thing. Okay, so when the boss comes to their house, he notices the jellyfish, which is a highly venomous red jellyfish. I mean, I don't know where Arita got this fucking thing.
Well, what Arita says before the boss is even there, Nomura sticks his hand in and he goes, "Hey, get it out." That's poisonous. He goes, "You're mocking the jellyfish's venom. Never mock the jellyfish's venom." And then, of course, the boss does the same thing.
Yeah, jellyfish.
His hand.
Some of the most dangerously venomous creatures on the planet. Yeah. So the boss notices. He said, "Oh, what is that? A tropical fish?" And they're like, "Oh, it's a jellyfish." And he starts putting his hand in the tank, just like Nomura did earlier. And Nomura starts to begin to say, "Hey, don't do that. It's incredibly venomous." And Arita stops him. Arita stops him, and there's this long scene of the boss with his hand in the tank as this thing pulses and gets closer to him, and he pulls his hand out at the last minute because he sort of gets some premonition that something is off here.
He doesn't get stung.
He's
freaked out somehow.
What he does do eventually is look up the red jellyfish and then confronts Arita about it, who then quits. And then he says to Nomura, he's like, "Hey, your friend tried to kill me with this jellyfish."
Yeah. So, he says, "I'll get you that. I'll get you that position soon. If you don't try to do that again." I don't know, but
so here's the super disturbing thing that happens is that Nomura, who's the more passive one, he's the less dominant member of the friendship, because he wants his CD back. He's sort of in the arcade, the bowling alley where he hangs out is closed that night, and he wants his CD back. So he walks to his boss's house, picks out a lead pipe, kind of similar to Cure. The friend
he's practicing with it before he goes in.
He's whipping it around in the street.
He feels like maybe this is the night I'm going to kill my boss.
And he goes to his house, I guess, with the intention of give me my CD back. Yeah. But he's thinking he's going to murder
his
this guy.
Subscribe
for non-CD related reasons.
He goes into the guy's house, and as you said earlier, Brendan, there's a scene of him looking around, and then there's one flash of him seeing these bludgeoned to death
their
bodies.
heads are just pulp at that point or something. It's
in their
very
bedroom.
Disturbing.
And he realizes that his friend has had the same idea, and because he's the more dominant one, has carried it out before he had the chance to.
And what I found interesting with the dynamic is that Arita is usually telling Nomura to calm down.
For the full episode, subscribe
be cool.
at patreon.com/Chapo
is the one
Trap House.
that looks prone to violent outbursts. He's the chicken's too small. He says the pieces of chicken are too small in the beginning, and he freaks out. but he's in fact the one who he probably wouldn't have had the nerve to really kill his boss. Whereas Arita cold and quietly, brutally murders the boss, and he was the one who seemed like the voice of reason between the two.
And I was
for the full episode, subscribe at patreon.com/Chapo Trap House. Trap